Okay, it's just right at noon and we've got many people still joining us, so I'm going to give it just another minute. But just welcome everybody. Well, there's 130 of you joining, and so that's just a terrific response to a great project that we're going to be presenting today. So we'll just give it another minute and then I'll start some introductions. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Stephanie Aden. I'm Executive Director of AIA Spokane, and welcome to one of the last week of Architecture Month. Resilience in Architecture is our theme this month, and we've had some great presentations that many of you I know have joined. Today is about a project that's going in, one of the last projects to be completed in the Riverfront Park redevelopment, and it's pretty exciting, and we're looking forward to a great presentation. This is a little bit longer. This one will last to about 1:30, so I hope you've planned on a good lunch and an opportunity to listen to some great thoughts from great designers. This course is providing HSW credit, and when you signed up, you should have given me your AIA number. If you did not, go ahead and email me at office@aiaspokane.org, and I'll make sure and you get credit for this course. We do want to thank CSI Spokane. They have been a great sponsor for Architecture Month. They've sponsored our $50 gift card giveaway that we're giving away at every webinar, supporting the Spokane dining scene. We'll go ahead and randomly give away a card at the end of this session, so please stay tuned for that, and there'll be a lucky winner. At the end of Architecture Month, we'll do another 10 50 card giveaways to the people that attended the most events throughout the month. So keep signing up on aiaspokane.org, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next two events coming up to round out Architecture Month. So I do want to thank our lunch sponsors. I know 50 of you received a Grubhub gift card for $20 to enjoy lunch on our great sponsors: Architectural Directions, NAC Architecture, Target, and J&J Flooring, and AIA Spokane. So enjoy that, and glad that you could come and join us, and thank you so much to our sponsors. So we are getting credit this particular day, and so I do like to take the opportunity to just discuss the learning objectives real briefly, and so you know what you'll be seeing throughout the hour and a half. You're going to identify how local geology and geologic events played a role in the design concept and material selections. Develop an increased awareness of how multi-generational play recreation is achieved through public space. Identify public art elements and discuss the process for incorporating public art into the playground. Identify how specialty consultants inform the theme, materials, and construction methods. Identify how partnerships with and considerations of adjacent property owners played a role in the design. And finally, to review how the playground fits into the Riverfront Park master plan and the role it plays as a gateway. So, well, we went by the speakers. Okay, I'm gonna go back, and I want to introduce the project team, because they're the ones that are going to be providing all this great information and video and all the information for today. We'll start out by introducing Bill LaRue. Bill LaRue is a landscape architect and associate with BWA. Bill served as the project manager for BWA during the design and construction document phase, coordinating with multiple specialty consultants. Julia Culp, also landscape architect with BWA. Julia served as project landscape architect, supporting construction documentation, project coordination, and construction administration. And following up with Del Hatch, who is principal and also landscape architect. Del served as the principal in charge for the project and was instrumental in early concepting and schematic design for the overall site and playground with Bill and Julia. And then also we have from Spokane Parks and Recreation, we have Barry Ellison. He's the program manager, landscape architect. As his role, he oversaw and guided and coordinated the various Riverfront Park redevelopment projects and reconciles the interdependencies among them. This included strategically guiding project managers to ensure they're all working effectively toward the master plan's program objective. He also facilitated communication among the program's cross-functional teams and managed the overall scope, budget, and schedule. A big job. Thank you, Barry. And then we have Nigel Davies from Eastern Washington University. He's a professor of geology. And he has an expertise in regional geology, glaciers, and landscape. His role was to provide the valuable background and education to the design team related to the Ice Age floods and their influence on how the recurring floodwaters shaped our local and regional landforms. His role as an educator also contributed to the learning opportunities that were incorporated in the playground design. So with that introduction, I want to go ahead and turn it over to Julia and the rest of the design team. I'm looking forward to hearing a great presentation. Oh, I also want to introduce our moderators, Georgia Harder, who represents AIA, and Marcy Schreiber. They will be posing the questions at the end of the presentation, and I want to make this interactive, but we are going to hold the questions to the end. If you can go ahead and put the questions in on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, we'll keep track of all those and make sure we get to your questions at the end of the presentation. Julia, take it away.
Great, thanks, Stephanie. If you wouldn't mind unsharing, we'll share our presentation. Welcome, everybody. We're excited to have you here. This was one for the record books for our office, for sure.
Okay, why am I not unsharing? Oh, there we go. There we go. You're good.
We're going to start off the presentation by just acknowledging our consultant and construction group. Emily, if you could go to the next slide. They say it takes a village. That was true in this effort for sure. We worked with a variety of consultants, contractors, specialty consultants, such as Eastern, ID Sculpture. We had donators such as the Just Ross Kelly Foundation and Spokane Hoop Fest, who all made this project a success. To give you a little background on what the park looks like to date, we have a video to start off the presentation. This footage was taken about 2 weeks ago, so there's been a little progress since then, but this gives you a good background of what's out on site today.
Well, that was fantastic, Julia. This is Barry Ellison. I am the program manager for the City of Spokane Parks and Recreation Department. And I have had the fortunate experience of working with BWA on the 5th project in our redevelopment. On your screen, you can see an illustration of a very first master plan for Riverfront Parks redevelopment. It was developed back in 2014. You can see the river in blue as it pulls through our site from east to west as it diverts around Havermale Island. There's also Canada Island, which is also known as Sinumene. On the southern portion of our park is Spokane Falls Boulevard, and that's where a lot of our early improvements were made. We developed the ice ribbon, which is a wonderful 700 lineal feet of refrigerated ice out there with a big a pond area, and it also facilitates our gondola or our sky ride. We renovated the fountains. Rotary 21 group gave us this wonderful Harold Blazes sculpture, and we renovated those fountains, and they're working wonderfully. The Louvre Carousel was another big project of ours where we designed a jewelry case, if you will, for our beautiful historic carousel. We have our Howard Street Promenade that extends north-south through the park, where we've renovated several bridges, including replacing one that is the Orange Bridge, we like to call it. The U.S. Pavilion was lit up at the end of 2019, and we're booking shows for this year. We also did another playground over there, which is an all-inclusive playground that was donated by Providence Health. But by far, the project that I think is the biggest gift to Spokane is this vacant lot on the north side of the river that was developed with the theme of the Ice Age floods, which was an event that happened 15 to 40,000 years ago, over and over, as the ice was receding out of just north of us. It caused this giant Lake Missoula, and to give you an idea of the size of, I think it's 500 cubic miles of water Lake Missoula was up in modern day, well, always in Montana, I should say. It undermined the ice and came roaring through our city and across the state and towards the Pacific Ocean, and it shaped our land, and it created geology and other landforms that help drive the theme of our Ice Age Floods playground. The Ice Age Floods playground isn't just for little kids, though. It's for children of all ages, because the playground itself, even though the smaller area for the kids, I shouldn't say it's small because it's an acre. It's over 40,000 square feet of just pure fun, but there's also 8,500 square feet of wheels and skate park. There's a 10,000 square foot post-tension slab. A lot of you know post-tension that we use for our basketball courts. There's drop-off areas and 150 parking spaces. There's a maintenance and operations building, but that helps support all that. But it's for kids of all ages, and we expect to see teenagers here playing in Riverfront Park once again. Art has been incorporated throughout the site. You'll probably see some shots here and there of even some artwork that we kind of dug up and used as yard art, if you will. Specialty consultants, I consider BWA to be a specialty in landscape architecture. They did McEwen Park, many other parks. They were the fit for this project, and they were awarded this project through a public solicitation phase. We're able to win it, and for the last couple of years, we went through a tremendous design phase, studied many different options and possibilities, but always coming back to the Ice Age floods and making sure that this is an awesome place for children that demonstrated our geology, our place, our sense of home. Also, this project wasn't easy because we had to coordinate with our neighbors. Our public facilities district is building the Podium up on top of the bluff just above us. They have nowhere to exit groundwater or stormwater. We helped them with that. It was a big effort with them. We also traded some earthworks with them. They took some of our dirt. We took some of their water. On this old railroad site. That was a big plus for us. It was a win-win situation in every way. And without further ado about the master plan or where we're going, I'm going to turn it over to BWA and their team. I think Nigel is going to speak next. And again, congratulations to BWA, and I'm very proud to be here today.
Well, thank you,
Barry.
Barry. All right. Well, let's just set the scene here. And Barry alluded to some of the geology, but just so if you're not a Spokane local or an Eastern Washington local, that the story of the Ice Age flood is present in your mind. During the last glaciation, fingers of ice protruded southward from Canada and blocked off different river valleys, and the number one of which was the Clark Fork River Valley, which currently spills into Lake Pend Oreille at Hope, Idaho, and then the Purcell trench lobe of the Cordilleran ice sheet blocks that off and creates and dams in glacial Lake Missoula. And in the first phase of flooding, when the ice dam broke, water was released southwestward through both the Rathdrum Prairie and down through the Spokane Valley, and sculpted and carved a basically evacuated Spokane, right? We're carving out and re-establishing the old Spokane River, allowing for high velocity waters to tear up and pluck and remove all of the basalt and underlying granitic and gneissic rocks that are part of Spokane's geology. Now, from there, other lobes grew, especially the Okanagan lobe, which goes down the current modern-day Okanagan River Valley. And that changes the environment here in Spokane, where instead of having floods that are going through an existing river valley, the glacial lake Columbia forms behind the Okanagan lobe, and the floods come repetitively down from the glacial Lake Missoula and enter into a newly formed, probably about 16,000 years ago, newly formed glacial Lake Columbia. As they do so, the water is redirected. Initially, it would have gone down the old Columbia River, and it gets redirected eastward across the channeled scablands. And so the goal of the project here was to incorporate the features of both the Montana side as well as the Eastern Washington side, all through Idaho, bring in the regional features and allow for the architectural team to replicate and utilize some of the wonderful geology, from dry falls to giant ripples to rhythmites in the slack water deposits. And most of those features have been highlighted and utilized and put into this design phase. So from there, I hope everyone's comfortable with the geology. I will I'll pass it off. And
Thank you, Nigel. Nigel was a key piece to our team. He continued to inform the design through the geology, and we worked in all the components that he just spoke about, or many of them, into the initial designs and the final designs.
Well, I'm Bill LaRue. I'm a landscape architect with Bernardo Wills, and I was involved in the early phases through design. We really needed Nigel's help in helping us understand what was going on geologically during the flood. We also had another educator, Amy Navakis-Brosh. She's a stormwater engineer. She helped us with some of the stormwater on the site and trying to tell the story hydraulically, what was going on with the water as well. So having both of those two educators on our team was very important from the beginning in helping us understand really what some of these geologic features were and how they were created. So this little bubble diagram that we have up here was really just trying to help us understand what was going on. And we had identified some of the more important elements of geology that we wanted to incorporate in the park. And so this was also kind of a spatial analysis drawing as well. What we were showing there in dark blue is really the flood direction from east to west. And how we identified that was the Montana the Montana side where Lake Missoula is. The ice dam was broken at the Purcell Trench Lobe. So that's kind of where our story starts. And we feel that's the oldest part of our story. And then as the floods moved to the west, we felt it became more of a present day expression of our design. So it gave us an opportunity. It was something we wanted to incorporate into our playground, is trying to use natural play as on the east side of the project. And then as you move more towards the west, we could incorporate some more traditional types of play equipment. That way we could be more inclusive and give more opportunities for kids to play. So one of the first things that when this dam broke, the ice dam, there was dry falls. We were trying to incorporate some of those into that scenario, and coulees. So you can see in the upper part, we have a dry falls there along the cliff, which was one of the major components to this park that we needed to incorporate into our design, because it's a 20-foot cliff that's, it really is a good example of how geologically the Spokane Valley is made up of basalt. We wanted to try and incorporate some of that cliff into our play features. So we started to develop these trench lobe, the Purcell Trench Lobe, the Okanagan Lobe, and the Puget Lobe as opportunities to create some spaces for more intimate spaces for play and separation. You can see in the sketch we have in red there's we have identified red mites was something that we really wanted to incorporate into the playground. We had Steptoe, as in Steptoe Butte. The Prairie and the Palouse is south of us. As you extend to the west, the Nema Mounds and the Scablands out in Moses Lake area are a very important part. We also wanted to include the alluvial fan, which is more towards the end of the progression of the flood, which would be more sand play. So those are the things that we really wanted to try and incorporate into the park. Those are a lot of elements. So I think this sketch became pretty important in the beginning to help us understand how we might put a conceptual plan together. Could you go to the next slide, please? So this is a concept that we came up with that was based on that spatial analysis. There's a lot of stuff going on in here, and what we were trying to accomplish was to basically throw out a lot of ideas, see what gels, see what fits on the site. Originally, when we developed this concept, we were just using the parks program for the park. And we didn't have the benefit really of visiting with the Parks Department at this point, because it was really early phases of the project. We were trying to figure out, how this was all going to get put together. The Parks Department wanted to maintain their existing maintenance and operation facility, which was a pretty large building out there. So we're showing in this plan on the east there, a building that would be a partial component of what they had there before. The other part of the building would be demolished, and parking would move into that area, as well as the entrance into the park. So that would be the main entrance into the park off of Washington Street. So as you come in to the park, we were trying to incorporate those same elements that we had in our bubble diagram. So you can see just to the north of our entrance, we actually had a kind of a secondary entrance from the north down the cliff, which wasn't really feasible in the end, but you can see where those stairs come down, which was our Lake Missoula. You can see the lobes I was just talking about in white. So there's 3 projections down into the park from the cliffs, and those were intended to try and create some intimate spaces for different playground uses. One of those lobes, we wanted to try and incorporate a way to get from the upper level of the 20-foot cliff into that tower area. So we were trying to figure out ways that we could incorporate that 20-foot basalt cliff into the project. At that point, we knew that there was going to be a project located above the cliff, which is now the Podium project, but we didn't really know exactly what was going on. We knew that we wanted to have some interaction with that. So these were some ideas that we had of trying to incorporate that level of pedestrian movement 20 feet up into the park. So that connection to the tower was an early idea. And then just to the left of that tower, that red tower there, is the channeled scablands, which is the Moses Lake area. We thought that was an important component of geology, so we included that. The dry falls, you can see just to the left and above that, was an idea that we had. Barry had talked about how we wanted to try and incorporate stormwater coming from the Sportsplex project. We didn't know how much water, we didn't know how big the project was, but it turned out to be a 3.5 acre roof on that building that we needed to deal with stormwater moving through the site. And originally we had thought that we might want to use those dry falls to be able to handle the stormwater and create some interpretation or some learning opportunities for children that might be in this park. So that was just an idea, an early idea at that point. To the left of that, we had a fossil bed, archaeological dig, and some alluvial sand area, which was more of a sand dig area. So we ended up getting those into the project. Just to the left of that was another entry feature that's shown in the red asterisk there. And just above that, you can see we had a symbol that was our mammoth. And we were trying to incorporate the mammoth as a wayfinding opportunity into the playground. The mammoth it's actually the state of Washington's fossil. So we thought that was a pretty important piece to the playground. There was 3 other little buildings on the site. One was that large picnic pavilion there. There was a smaller one, which was actually a Expo 74 gatehouse that was in really poor condition. So in this concept, we had thought about removing that. And then also there's a restroom that was existing at the time as well. So we were thinking that we might recondition that as well. Below the bigger pavilion there's some NEMA mounds, and which just gives us some more play opportunity for the playground areas. A basketball court was also part of the original programming, as well as the Wheels Park, which is located just below that. And you can see right around the Wheels Park there, kind of at the bottom of the page in blue, is we had maybe some type of representation of Step-Toed Butte as a geologic feature. I think that's really about, that's a lot of stuff on a 8-acre site. And so the next step was for us to take these ideas to the Parks Department and the stakeholders and see what they felt was important components that we might want to continue with development.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Bill said, that sketch you just saw was actually developed for the interview process. So those were ideas that our team put together in anticipation of the interview. And it was interesting to see as we moved throughout the project that we always continued to go back to those initial ideas because they had that strength and that tie to the geology.
Hey, hello everybody. I'm Del Hatch with Bernardo Wills. Thanks for joining us. As Julia mentioned, that previous drawing was our interview board, and as Bill said, that had a lot of information on it, had a lot of different opportunities to incorporate into the park, and it really excited us. Once we actually were awarded the contract, started working with Barry and his group, and started to schematically arrange all of the elements that were listed under a more refined program, it started to get even a little bit tighter. One of the things that we didn't realize was that we would add parking spaces to this site, and it was a benefit both that they would be able to serve our playground, but they would also be able to serve the US Pavilion and the events that would occur there. So in each of these schemes, you can see that the parking lot has grown considerably from that concept board that we used during our interview presentation. So we started positioning parking in different areas. The yellow rectangle that's shown in each of these schematic schemes represented a recommendation that rather than leave the existing maintenance and operation building in its existing location, that it would be demolished and that we would build a new one, freeing up the site a little bit for how we might want to arrange it and giving them a more usable and more efficient M&O building as well. So you can see in the upper left, we had a scheme that showed the maintenance building and its yard sort of to the south of the parking along the river corridor. And the one below that, we looked at positioning it along Washington Street. And in the third one, it got positioned even more centrally, close to where it was actually at. In the end, and Julie, is it you that has the cursor, or Emily? It ended up in the northern portion. There you can see in the orange rectangle. So this drawing that you're looking at now, this basically represents the development of the Ice Age Floods Playground. As Barry mentioned, 150 car parks, the new 7,500, 8,000 square foot O&M building, its service yard. You can see that there's actually 2 basketball courts in that final scheme, whereas originally we thought there might be 1. We did end up maintaining and improving that expo entry structure, and I'm glad we did, because now that it's cleaned up and it has a new roof, it looks fantastic. It's going to be able to serve directly adjacent to those basketball courts, provide additional gathering space and shade in the playground. The existing shelter remained as is, received a new roof on that, got cleaned up a little bit. But you can see that as the Purcell lobe of the glacier is represented there, right where our colorful kind of flow of flood initiates. And that's one thing that we felt had to be incorporated throughout any of the schemes. It's really where we're able to demonstrate or symbolize that flood, the dam breaking, where that splash pad occurs, and then everything moving in that westerly, southwesterly direction. One of the things that came on later in the plan was the donation of the climbing rock by the Ross Kelly Foundation. With that addition, it actually enhanced the playground, especially from an approach from the parking lot, because it framed and created a very beautiful gateway and a true sight line from the parking lot that has a terminal focus on that climbing tower that Bill was describing. You can see illustrated along the top there the importance of that 20-foot wall that Bill described. We had right on site, we had a perfect example of how our site had been formed through the flooding. So we incorporate that as much as we could. We took certain elements like the skate park and kind of located it as far north as we could to integrate it up against that wall, almost as if it were just an extension of the lobe coming out of the rock. We've added the MEMA mounds, more of them, smaller, more representational than as to what the MEMA mounds actually look like. We retained a handful of the really important trees within the park, the one being sort of that sentinel ponderosa pine that's dead center. A lot of fun stuff happening, the sand areas, and you're going to see some of those as we move forward. But what you're looking at today basically illustrates what the playground, the final vision for the playground.
Thank you, Del. So we're going to walk through a couple of the individual components of the playground now and show you a series of kind of our initial sketches and then some concept inspiration images, and then move to showing you the built condition. As Bill and Del mentioned, the Mammoth was something that we felt would be a really fun and exciting component to include in the playground, being that it is the state fossil and speaks to the flood events and the history there. We knew that that was an important component. So on the bottom of the screen, the bottom left, you can see an initial sketch that we had for a concept of a mammoth skull. And we thought that that might be a really great gateway or entry feature into the park. We then looked at some examples, both historical images and playground, built playground components that were representative of some of those ideas, and ultimately ended up with the mammoth body and head that you see in the bottom right image there. And that is located now as you enter the playground from the parking lot if you are moving west.
Well, as you can imagine, the skate park, having skaters moving around is not something you really want to have out in the middle of the playground. So we felt like we needed to put them in an area that would contain them so that there wouldn't be any conflicts with other park users. So we created this space using the maintenance and operation building, and then we used what we were calling the Purcell Lobe to separate the skate park from the splash pad area. So it creates their own space in there. These images don't really show it very well, but we do have a part of that stormwater that we needed to take from the podium through our site runs through there. On the picture on the left there, you can see some logs laying on the rocks there. That's actually kind of a dry creek bed that at a 100-year event, storm event, water would come through that area, and then it goes through a structure, and then eventually it makes its way into a sort of a grassy swale that makes its way to the river. So that's a stormwater kind of emergency feature that we had to incorporate into the park. But we ended up making it basically a feature to the skate park. And we had quite a bit of public engagement with the local skate folks, and they really liked the idea of that. So it was basically designed so that skaters could jump that little dry creek bed. It looks kind of dangerous, but I know that the skaters typically skate to their level of ability. And so some people will be able to do that. And I know I wouldn't want to try it, but also on the left, that left sketch, you can see there's a little rail there, a little grind rail with 3 posts. You can see that there. That was a component to the old UTF, which was under the freeway skate park. And when that skate park was demolished, somehow the skating community got a hold of that component and had it, and then they donated it to the project. So that's kind of a sort of a unique historical piece of the skating community's project. So I think that's really about it for the skate park, but it was a really important component to the project.
Thanks, Bill. The Glacial Dam Splash Pad, as we like to call it, kind of is the next component in the story of the flood. So as Bill and Del mentioned, this rock face wall that is constructed in the playground is what we're calling the Purcell Trench Lobe. And our concept for the splash pad was that it would represent the breaking of that ice dam in that lobe and the let loose of the flood. So we worked with a series of consultants, both Nigel and ID Sculpture, to create the wall of the splash pad that told that story. And you can see kind of in the distance of the rock work, there's cracks that are carved into the GFRC, and within those cracks there are misters located. And we have sequenced the splash pad so that a series of misters first come on, and then a series of ground sprays, and then the big flood event with the dumping of the waterfall would occur. And there'd be a series of waterfall and dumpings happening throughout the course of the day, throughout the course of the hour, but that it wouldn't be continually flowing, that it would build excitement and anticipation from the kids in the playground.
And so I think one of the things we're really looking to do is to make sure that some of the geology that was incorporated was as accurate as possible. And so the rhythmites that are on the wall just off of the podium are mimicked after the slack water or the low energy deposits that would have been in glacial Lake Missoula, as well as downstream in dammed lakes as the floodwaters pushed their way towards the Pacific, places like Burlingame Canyon just east of Pasco and the Tri-Cities. And ID Sculpture did a great job putting that GFRC together and mimicking some of the repetitive nature of the deposition, where we have two phases of deposition linked in kind of in a couplet. And now it's going to be a climbing wall that is actually got some serious chops to it. I think it's 12 feet tall. And those represent the multiple phases, 80 to 100 phases of flooding that would have swept over and through the Spokane Valley.
And as that water moved, we knew that it too was carrying various deposits of rock and logs and other debris. So we came up with this initial concept of what we called the log jam, and thought that that could be a very fun and unique climbing component within the playground. So, initial sketches included slides within the log jam. We thought maybe we would use a series of natural timbers with rope climbers. And as the concept was formed further, we worked with ID Sculpture to develop that log jam. And in the bottom right, you can see that built condition. The log jam is built out of GFRC, carved with detailed bark and tree rings within it, and then rope climbers that tie to other various components within the playground.
One of the things we wanted to incorporate into the project was a very iconic custom play element. So you can see in the sketch below, what we were originally thinking was that this tower might have some slides built in it. It might be kind of built out of rock. You can see we had a bridge that was connected to the above the 20-foot wall there to the podium area. We were trying to use that kind of a dual purpose for that play structure, was to also create an observation deck as well. So that was the idea. We had the two images, the two photos above were some inspiration concepts that we were looking at for different towers and other parks. But we ended up in the lower right ended up with a custom play piece that Create Play developed. It's a 30-foot tower sitting on top of a 4-foot mound. The tower was basically trying to mimic a basalt column. very abstractly. So you can see the facets in the exterior of the tower. That little bump out you see at the very top, that's kind of a special feature that when you're at the very top of that, it's an observation area, but kids will lean up against that and it kind of gives you a vertigo experience looking down. So it's kind of a neat feature. There's two big spiral slides that leave from that top level. The middle level has the green slide and it's ADA accessible. So we have transfer stations that would get someone from a wheelchair up to that level so they could experience the same thing. Inside the tower is some custom rope climbing feature as well as ladders to provide additional play value to that piece. And you can see in the foreground, there's a couple of concrete slides for smaller kids. Those are pretty fast slides, but a lot of fun. So that's just a very custom piece that we wanted to incorporate into the park. And we couldn't do the bridge, but we did make it, the height of it was important because we wanted it to be a very iconic piece to the playground, and you can see it from the parking lot through a very directed view corridor.
The channeled scablands, erratics, and alluvial fan sand and water play areas were and other important components that spoke to the geology. The channeled scablands was an idea that we had that would continue from the splash pad and then move further west through the playground. This was one component that we did not end up moving forward with in the design. There was some challenges as far as permitting this and just kind of the logistics of it. But we did work with Nigel on the selection and placement of erratics throughout the playground, as well as the design for the sand play area. And that sand play area is home to a sand and water table with a hand pump, allowing kids to produce the water and interact with the water on that table. And then there are also a series of fossils that are hidden below the sand. So it allows kids to experience a fossil dig as well.
We worked with Amy, our stormwater person, on this project. We wanted to tell the story about what water did as it moved through the area. So that the little graphic up there on the top of the screen of the water and the fish, that starts to show what water does as it moves through. It creates eddies and spinning opportunities. So we wanted to try and incorporate some of that, really mostly with that channel scablands, which we didn't move forward with. But what we wanted to do is try and incorporate some spinning play opportunities that sort of tie into how the water might be created with eddies. So that's what the representation of the girl and the spinner is up above. Also, down below are the meme mounds that we did incorporate into the project. And we wanted to use those in some lawn areas that would give more play value to the lawn rather than just, the kids can run up the hill and roll down the hills, and it gives them more play opportunities. Nigel can speak a little bit more about what those meme mounds are.
So if you're ever taking off or landing at the Spokane airport, as you depart Geiger Field, you can see on the West Plains a sequence of these gravel-loaded 2 to 3 meter tall mounds, and they represent flowing water. And each scenario, potentially gophers. We've got a variety of different creation stories for them. But they are part and parcel to a glacially carved landscape. The ones you see down here are from the west side, but they do exist all throughout the West Plains and are integral to the Ice Age flood story. So that, and I think we were also trying to potentially put in some large ripple marks, but the Mima mounds, I think, played a little bit better in that location.
The playground is home to a series of other really unique components, one of which is the post-tension basketball court. Our team worked with Hoop Fest to develop the Hooptown USA court, which is, as far as we know, the only post-tension basketball court in Spokane. They decided to go this route just to build a court that would withstand the time and hold up to the elements here in Spokane. And it's a really neat, unique feature of the playground. It currently is topped with sport court surfacing, and Hoop Fest plans to work with a local artist for a mural on the top of that basketball court as well. And I think David's going to speak to some of the historical structures a little bit more, and the coordination between the maintenance facility and skate park wall.
Yes, like Julie was saying, and everybody's shown that this site is pretty compact and tried to fit a lot of things into it. One of those things being the maintenance building, and one of the challenges we had with this was trying to find a good location for it to blend in with the rest of the park. Opportunity came to put it up against the skate park because it served a couple of functions. It gave a backdrop for one of the walls in the skate park, as well as given an opportunity for restrooms to be located centrally for the facility. And what we tried to do with the building was not so much make it a feature, but make it sort of blend in with the rest of everything. So we did that by bringing the CMU veneer on the outside of the building and layering it in a similar fashion as the rock formations that would be in the park and the area throughout there, and making it more of a just blended feature to it. One of the other things that we did with the historical pavilion centers, the ones from the Expo 74 project, is Bill and Dell and Julia both found a nice way to integrate those into the park and use those facilities as support for the basketball court and a place centrally for the park to use as a pavilion. So what we did there is concentrate on restoring those elements and improving them to make a better appearance for them. We replaced the roof, some trim pieces. And at one point on the smaller pavilion, we had to remove the old tongue and groove decking that was up there because it was basically rotten out. So in that, we had to recreate that type of decking to maintain the historical appearance to it and add a little bit of framing to it to bring it back to what it would have been had it been built brand new at the time. So I think that was pretty successful in getting those integrated back into the project.
Yeah, great. This picture on the top right also speaks to the point that Bill mentioned earlier about the stormwater. This shows that corridor that he mentioned a little bit better in that gap between the two phases of the skate park. We originally had the western phase of the skate park as the base bid and the eastern phase as an alternate, and luckily we're able to move forward with that alternate. And this created a neat separation between those two that allowed for that passage of stormwater, as well as one of the more tricky components of the skate park. So we've already heard that some of the skating community is calling this the river gap jump, and they're pretty excited about using this. And with that, I think we're going to end with showing the video one more time and move into some panel questions.
We have a couple questions for the panelists. First one, why is multi-generational play important and how is it achieved through public space?
Great question. I think this project was a very good representation of how we could incorporate a variety of ages into a space. So one of the things that comes to mind is the climbing walls. As ID Sculpture was sculpting those climbing walls, they were incorporating a variety of difficulties in the routes that were carved into the rock. So there's beginner routes and there's expert routes. And so you could see, a father who's a climber climbing adjacent one of their children and allowing both ages to experience the park and the play components at the same time. I think the educational components that we spoke to as far as the geology, there's going to be some interpretive signs. Those components allow, parent or guardian and child to interact as they're reading those signs and then looking to the various rocks that are located throughout the playground and the carvings as well.
There was another question, Julia, about the slides, whether they were sized for adults as well, which kind of falls on that. Okay, great. People will be happy about that.
Yeah, we've done a little QC on those. They were great.
One of the next questions is, how does the playground interact with the surrounding sites, including how did the stormwater influence design?
I think I'll have Barry and Bill speak to that a little bit.
Well, thank you, Julia. We had a partner next door, the Public Facilities District, that we worked really closely with, not only on sharing utilities, stormwater in particular, but also with physical connections so that people can move from one project to another. Our North Bank or Ice Age Floods playground, it borders it basically ties into the rest of our Riverfront Park by the Howard Street right-of-way, or what we call the Howard Street Promenade, that moves. It's a 35-foot wide pathway, shared use pathway actually, for bicycles and pedestrians. It runs north-south through the whole project. So that connection was really important. And then taking from that point, which is on the west end of our playground, and running northward into not only the new Podium project, which is a huge field house, but also it spurred some activity from some other landowners in the area that have also started developing and building as a result, or in part by this project. Our friends on the east side of our project, managed by the Barbieris, opened up the new Bark Pub. It's a brand new rescue luncheon place. It's a interesting concept, and they opened partway through our construction project, and we worked with them very closely on how to manage parking and access and give them a storefront while we were working. Also, right in the middle of our project is, that kind of jets into it, is the Department of Homeland Security, and they're rather adamant in their requirements for access, ingress and egress and security. So we work with them rather diligently as well, including all of the other city departments, mainly to make sure that we had our stormwater well thought out, that we didn't inundate our systems, because this location is where a lot of water comes from the basins that are north of us. So we have a lot of subsurface movement of water through our site, a vista, many different types of communication challenges for fibers and whatnot that run through our area. Anyway, it was a big coordination effort with a lot of stakeholders.
I guess to add to that, the stormwater, how we treated it, I think on the surface, hopefully it's not very noticeable. We had that creek that runs through the skate park, and then eventually it pops out and turns into a grassy swale that eventually would go over the Centennial Trail into the river in a large storm event, 100-year plus storm event. For the smaller events, all that water is taken, and we have it goes through a 24-inch storm pipe that's buried under the site. We really wanted to incorporate that more into the story of the park, but we ran into some issues with the health department not really wanting to allow the stormwater to be exposed to park users. So hopefully that part of the project is not really as noticeable. As far as the parking lots themselves, we wanted to go ahead and use bioinfiltration swales to slow the water down. And a big part of this is because we're sort of the end of the stormwater structures in the city. They're basically at capacity, so we needed to really slow the stormwater down before it made it to the river and cleaned it as well. So hopefully the stormwater part of it is maybe only noticeable to engineers.
That kind of tied into one of our questions that we got was, does the splash pad use stormwater? And no.
The splash pad does not use stormwater. The splash pad is a recirculating system filled with domestic city water. And that was one of the big challenges of this project. We initially looked at a flow-through system that would dump the water when it was done into the sewer system. And through conversations with the health department in the city, determined that that was maybe not the most effective route for sustainability, and then started shifting towards what would be a recirculating system. So there's a reservoir on site that holds water that goes through a chemical system to be cleaned, and then is recirculated out into a splash pad and reused.
We have some other questions in the Q&A chat. And you mentioned this, the interpretive signage on the site to help explore the geological concepts. Can you kind of speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we have a series of interpretive panels that are planned for the park. I think there's about 8 of them, 6 to 8 of them. And we've worked with both the city and the Ice Age Flood Institute on the language that is on those. And they will be placed in key locations in the park that are oriented towards whether it be a rock feature or a carving within the GFRC that directly correlates to the text that's on those panels. So I think we have some that describe columnar basalt, some that describe NEMA mounds. So several of the features that we spoke about today are represented on those panels.
Are you able to share the final construction costs or the cost per square foot for the project?
The final construction cost is expected to be $9.5 million. I'll have to reach out to Julie or Bill to know what the final square footage was, what our footprint is. It's got to be at least 6 acres, if not 7 or so.
I think it pushes 7, but I don't have the official number off the top of my head.
Yeah, park projects throughout Riverfront Park are roughly a little over $1 million an acre with the amount of improvements we've done. In some areas where we've erected new buildings, of course, that number goes way up. We've probably renovated upwards of 30 acres of land on Riverfront, and with the buildings and that, the final tally will come in right around $75 million.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm just so happy to see the progress and the beautification, and that's just so exciting to see. We have another, so thank you all for your hard work, but we do have more questions. Um, this one is regarding discouraging vandalism. How are you discouraging vandalism, and particularly graffiti?
I'll answer that. You know, when I'm in charge of design and construction of projects for the Parks Department. I hand it over after that to our maintenance and operations team. And included with that team are our park rangers, which are headquartered in Riverfront Park. And they oversee all of our park system. We've installed cameras to keep an eye on certain areas where we think there's going to be unsavory activity. And we also do a lot of patrols. We add some signage, but for the most part, we just continue to encourage good activity, welcoming spaces for people that are doing savory, things like skating or they're riding a carousel, or they're with other folks. They're going to be playing basketball, and that tends to be a bit self-policing. Now, in the case of late night spray painters and whatnot, in a lot of areas, we have applied anti-graffiti coatings that then we use a release agent to remove those. So other cases, we just simply repaint. But in Riverfront, we don't typically see a lot of vandalism. We don't see a lot of graffiti. When we do, it's usually simple things like they've spray painted a trash can, and we can clean that up fairly easy. But if you walk through Riverfront Park, you won't see a lot of graffiti. You won't see a lot of vandalism, and it's mainly because we've made it out of durable materials. We've applied coatings that can withstand or should I say, are resilient to that type of activity, paints and whatnot and markers. And then also just keep on encouraging good activities and bringing people in. Our farmers markets, our many other events that are brought in to celebrate and have fun in the park. And we just don't see it like maybe other communities might.
That's great. We have another question about accessibility. Did you look at trying to integrate the ADA paths at zigzags to be blended with the rock walls or transition with them?
I don't know who wants to answer that, but we did. I'll jump in. We worked with Integris on that ramp that goes from the podium down to our park, and we made sure that it wasn't a visual eyesore. So, and we knew there was going to be more people going up and down those ramps than just folks in wheelchairs. We knew there was going to be whole families coming down there with gear, with strollers, and many side by side. So we made the ramps rather wide. We made them very shallow in slope. They're less than 5%, with decent landings on either end. What that less than 5% did was it allowed us to put in those ramps, of course, without the need for handrails. And it also we didn't have to put in intermediate landings, and it has a very gentle cross slope on it. So you can go from our promenade at the intersection of Malin and Howard, or from the playground here, and make your way up to the Podium overlook level, which has gorgeous views of the city. And it's an easy trek, and you can take all your gear, and you can take your family, and you don't have to worry about feeling like you're being corralled somewhere. So yes, ADA was a big influencer on that design, but also just people in general, and knowing what they're doing and planning and accommodating them.
Julie, did you want to add anything to that? I saw you on mute.
Oh, no, I was just getting ready for the next one.
Okay. Let's see. Do you have fall-friendly surfaces under the climbing features? Was it used under any other play structures?
Yes, we do. Yeah, it's not shown in the video, but they are out on site this week pouring the poured in place surfacing. So that's the rubber surfacing that you see in playgrounds. That's going in this week. And that is through about half of the playground. And it will show kind of a moving water form. So we wanted to carry that flood theme from that splash pad into the playground. So we have a series of blue and tan colored poured in place, as well as what we call forever lawn. And that's an artificial turf with a foam pad underneath. And it's rated for playground fall surfacing.
Great. Can you guys talk a little bit about the challenges that you faced maintaining your fidelity to the original concept or vision of the Ice Age floods?
I'll speak to that. I think that, you know, as we showed you in some of our earlier slides, from the original concepts that we put together, working with Nigel, just to understand how the floods affected and shaped the ground in the area, the whole region through here. As we learned that, Bill talked about that bubble diagram, and as we shifted from that bubble diagram to sort of illustrate that interview board, we put an awful lot of stuff into it. And as we walked through and showed you what we were able to maintain and incorporate, the major element that we lost was a full development of the scab lens. So we did have some challenges. Most of the challenges probably came with putting in a little bit more parking than we originally anticipated. So our effective playground interaction sites started to shrink a little bit. So we did find some challenges there. We were able to overcome some of those challenges, as David Hipp mentioned, by incorporating a good portion of our skate park, utilizing the wall of the M&O building as part of the skate park. That helped us a little bit. Other than that, the stormwater was a design challenge, but I think in the end, the whole solution turned out really well, and it accomplished everything that we hoped to do. But basically, the concept to the built final product is relatively close to what we envisioned.
We have another question. Did you consult with indigenous people or local tribes and include any of the stories that they have based on the historical Ice Age event?
Bill, Del, Julie, I think that I might have insulated you a bit from the tribe during the design portion, mainly because I had worked with them so exhaustively over the previous 5 years. They were instrumental in all of the design decisions, and especially the sensitivity to this area, which is one of their native places that not only the Spokane tribe, but the Coeur d'Alenes and the Nez Perce and they all would come here and for thousands of years and gathered together, powwow, fish, whatnot, the creation stories all around the falls. They knew early on that this particular area used to be part of the river. And then after that, it got pretty disturbed by human activity. And then eventually it was filled in with dirt. And so it's a fill site. And then after that, it was a rail yard. And so over the years, it had completely lost context. It had lost, there wasn't any desire by the tribe to do much protecting in this zone. They knew that it was heavily disturbed, but we did keep them informed throughout the whole process and getting into construction, because they are our on-retainer archaeologists. And they come in and they were overseeing deep excavations. And this is throughout the entire history of the park, as well as on the North Bank. And they would help us by watching out for culturally sensitive items that would be in the area. As far as the story goes, from the tribe's perspective, they are focused way more on Havermale Island and what's called Sunumene, which is a small island formerly known as Canada Island. And they're really focused on that area. That is their place that they have almost complete reign over any kind of design and improvement. And that's where they do their storytelling. On Havermale is where they do their powwows. The North Bank, they're a bit more hands-off.
Great, thank you, Barry. Can you guys talk a little bit about what your process was for creating the concept for the interview to start out with? How that came about?
Bill, you want to take that? I think you would start.
I guess I could start there. I know the city had they had given us the idea of that they really wanted this park to be an Ice Age flood themed project. That's really why we got Amy and Nigel involved so early, is because we needed their help educating us to help us develop the ideas and the concept. And Nigel and Amy, both being educators, were looking at how we develop this to be able to educate others on how this flood occurred, and other teaching ideas. I know that that there's that water table out there that we have in our sand alluvial area that is intended for kids to be able to put sand on that table and pump water with a pump and be able to see how erosion happens. Nigel wants to be able to take his own class out there and show them the different types of erratics, that all those rocks were specifically picked out of a quarry to be used for educational purposes. So I think it was really, coming up with the concept was, I think it was really Nigel and Amy helping us out quite a bit with the direction that we got from the city and what they really wanted to see. And I'm not even sure, maybe Barry can explain further where that, I know that Ice Age theme concept came well before 2014, but
Yes, you're absolutely right, Bill. It came out of a citizens advisory report that helped shape the whole master plan of the redevelopment of Riverfront Park. So the Ice Age theme had been worked on by other designers and developed as an idea. And the park board, who's responsible for all improvements on park land, they answer to nobody but themselves. They made the decision to renovate 5 major projects in the park. And one of those was to create an Ice Age themed playground. And so that laid out the foundation for what this project was to be. Over time, as we worked on the park from south to north, it just came to be that was our final project. The RFP was issued looking for a qualified team. We wanted a local team. We couldn't dictate that. We wanted that. We wanted local talent. We knew that Spokane had it. And we knew that they could bring this this vision to life. We gave really no more than then a cartoon type sketch in the RFP with some criteria to add. You know, we want water, we want an acre's worth of playground, and then, as you're well aware, the city totally reserves its right to expand on scope and include things as we go along. So that's where it came from. Citizens Advisory Report crafted the redevelopment master plan, adopted by the park board, offered to the citizens of Spokane for a vote on a bond, which was passed. Here we are today.
No, thanks, Barry. That helps. I'll share a couple of thoughts on, how we took a look at the project from the initial concept and stuff. One of the things we didn't mention in this presentation, if you have an opportunity to visit the site tomorrow or as soon as it opens up here shortly, you may recognize that from our splash pad area where the dam breaks at the Purcell Lobe and the water start in the patterning, the colored patterning that Julia said is being placed now, sort of starts to show the flow of that flood as it moves from the west to the east. And that sort of represented the timeline geologically of what happened. And we were also, we wanted to show that in today's timeline, those play structures change as well. So near the splash pad where the dam occurs, the log jam, the climbing of the rocks and the rhythmite walls, those are all representative play elements of the early flood. But as we move further west, our play structures start to modernize a little bit. We have that symbolic basalt climbing tower. And as you move even further west of that, our play structures become a little bit more modern and colorful. That was something we actually spoke about a little bit, I think, in the interview, and we tried to incorporate that and maintain it. A fun story I'll share with everybody is that during that interview, one of the other interesting and I thought really cool components that Amy encouraged us to use was and I know because I was one of the guys that helped carry it 3 floors to the top of the library conference room for the interview, was this sand water table that was about 3.5 feet wide by about 6 or 7 feet long. But during the interview, we actually had that thing flowing where water was moving into the sand table. You can see the water start to form and erode and show how water works on the landscape, just to express how we thought those ideas were so important, how they could contribute to the children learning about the channel scablands, things like that. So interesting little tidbits that are hard to share all that stuff in a program like this.
Well, thank you. That's great. I think that's the end of our formal questions and our chat questions. I have a question for you guys, and I wonder if everybody could just go around and say what their favorite part is or what they're most looking forward to when the park's open. Julia, do you want to start?
I don't know if I could pick one favorite part. That's a little hard. It might be the rock climbing walls, just because seeing those built was such a unique experience for me. I was out with ID Sculpture, so most of the guys that sculpted those walls were climbers as well. So I'm not a climber myself, but seeing the art that went into that, it really truly was an art, not only in sculpting, but in painting those. That might be my favorite component. And what I'm most looking forward to is taking my new daughter to the playground when she's big enough.
I'll follow up by it. I'm like Julia. We have a 4.5-year-old grandson. We have very young nieces and nephews. And although I don't have a particular favorite part that's occurred, I think I'm just looking forward to taking them through all of the play areas and letting them experience all these different cool things. And I've already had the chance to go down one of the slides, so I know they're fun.
I guess for me, I don't think there's a particular part. I think I'm more interested in seeing how all the different kids that are doing different things interact with each other. Seeing what is the most popular feature, I think is going to be interesting to me. I just like to see the how people react because there's going to be so many different people doing. There's going to be people playing basketball and skating, people sitting on the benches watching their kids. You know, I think that the sand play area with the water table is going to be super popular. I think just watching all the different people do all the different things that we have to offer in the playground is going to be interesting to me.
I have one. It's the waterfall. The waterfall is going to be amazing. BWA put together a waterfall that drops sheet flow, 12 feet in the air, almost as wide, over 200 gallons a minute. This thing is massive, and it happens again and again and again. You step on this little activator and boom, it comes to life. There's water coming out of the wall itself, over the wall, dancing up on the ground, from the ground, all different angles, and it's about 1,500 square feet of pure water fun, and that's going to be the highlight, in my opinion.
Anyone else want to contribute? Nigel?
Yeah, I'm really excited for the rhythmic climbing wall, actually, and mainly because I have had lots of nieces, nephews, and colleagues, children who are like, "What? I'm going to be able to climb up that?" And then we'll be able to bring students from K through 12 up to our college students down there to kind of condensely tell a neat package story that has components that otherwise would be inaccessible to or hard to travel to. So I think being able to kind of condense the whole story into 7 acres is really, really impressive.
I guess my favorite, since not being an architect, is biased toward the building, but I do like how everything is integrated into the whole plan. There's multiple different levels. There's multiple different events and things to get integrated with, and it's just a very nice package put together.
Well, I think Stephanie does have some closing words. So
Yes, I guess I'll start by saying thank you, Dell, Julia, Bill from BWA. What a great, great project. And Barry, bringing that whole park together. I mean, this is just so exciting for Spokane. And Nigel, thanks for helping them tell the story from a history. We're all getting a great history lesson, and our kids will get that for many, many years. So thank you to all that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen one last time. And to our moderators for keeping this very large crowd and all their questions straight and answered. So thank you to Georgia and Marcy.
I wanted to add one thing, that there are so many compliments in the chat and Q&A. And so just good job on your guys' part. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, this is our biggest webinar we've hosted to date in this pandemic. And my guess is these webinars will continue because it's such a great way to get together large groups and to disseminate great project information. So tours will hopefully come back in person, but I think this has just been a great tool. So I just want to wrap up by saying we have 2 more events for Architecture Month. Tomorrow is the actual in-person tour of this beautiful park playground. So please plan to attend that. If you're in, we're actually limiting it to 40 people. We're requesting that you're an AIA, IIDA, or ASLA member, and meet at the park about 4 o'clock. And there will be parking provided just east of the playground, enter off Washington, but that will be locked right after the tour. So don't plan to go out to dinner and make a social event out of the entire evening. The second one is on the following Monday, we have the Podium, which is obviously very integral and very much a part of this playground. Right up above, we're doing a full design build team that will discuss inception through construction of this project. It will include Integris lighting, the PFD, as well as Spokane Sports. So go ahead and register for that as well. We expect a big audience for that too. So with that, I want to just go ahead and just announce our winner is for the $50 gift card to Baracho Tacos, River City Brewing, Fast Eddie's, or Boombox Pizza. Goes to Gloria Sanders of CDA Interiors. So congratulations to you. I'll send you an email and we'll figure out a way to get that to you. So thank you, everyone. Once again, great presentation. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll hopefully see many of you, or at least 40 of you, at the actual park tour tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you.